after seeing all of these great pictures and the reconstructions, I know you all have one thought in mind. Let's build one. Well, we did. And what you're seeing in front of you is a picture of me in front of the front entrance to the longhouse that I built. And the picture on the right is the inside of the longhouse. And you know that beam of light coming through, boy, that was very fortuitous, wasn't it? Made a lovely picture. But anyway, that's what kind of looks like inside. And then we'll get into the details of it. But this really started back in Vesterheim in 07. Elspeth was taking a weaving class, and she said, come with me to Vesterheim. And I said, well, what am I going to do? Well, it turned out that there was this Norwegian who was teaching timber framing a class there. So I took the class. And it was Cora Herfindahl, who has spent his life taking down old Grin buildings and fixing them and putting them back up and making new ones. And so we built this 10 by 18 foot Grin building. It is now a building on one of the parks in Decorah, Iowa, because the parks, Decorah Parks paid for the cost of building it. It was a 5-day course, 8 or 9 people in it, and I was probably the most inexperienced. I'm up right there in the second picture from the top. The longhouses are all Grin buildings, and they consist of a series of grins, which are 2 posts or staves with a cross piece called a beta. And those 3 pieces form a grin. And you take one grin and then you take a second grin, and the axial member, the axial member is called the stavlegger. And it lays on top of the posts. So you can make the longhouse as long as you want. The stavlegger also holds the rafters. In this particular style that Cora was teaching in the class, there's no ridge line or ridge posts. It's all self-supporting. The joints and the stavlegger make it that way. If you go to Norway, you'll find all sorts of different variations on the stavleggers and the rafters and whatnot. But this is the way Cora taught his class, and that's the way I've continued to build these Grin buildings. And to give you an example, this is a stavlegger, the axial beam that sits on top of the posts. And the details are alignment grooves to hold the posts in place, and pockets and things to hold the rafters. And all of those things are cut on the ground before they're moved into place. So it gives you an idea as to the intricacy of the joints. The joints are all self-locking. They don't use pegs. The pegs are there for alignment purposes and to hold it together while you bring it up. But once it's up in place, all the joints are self-locking. And remember, this started in the Iron Age. Over 1,000 years, maybe more, the technology to put these buildings together evolved until they're quite sophisticated. If you look at how the forces are designed and how the materials are used, they're fascinating construction techniques. Yeah, we've gone all over this one before. The frames, what's important? They support the weight of the roof. The walls do not support the weight. They're just there. They can be dirt, they can be sod, they can be wood, they can be stone, whatever you got. And everyone tends to think of these longhouses as being turned upside down boats with curved walls and curved ridges. That's true, but not necessarily. Look at the center picture there. It's a rectangular building with straight roofs. And you'll find these in places like Jorvik. And so not all longhouses were curved like that. You see, the length of the longhouses also, we've talked about them being very long. The one I built was 28 feet long and about 12, 14 feet, depending on what you measured, wide. And that's about the smallest you'll find. The center picture here is Eric's house in Greenland, and it's just a wee bit bigger than that. So it's not uncommon to build them smaller like we did. Of course, the bigger you make them, the more it costs. And of course, you know, that tends, you know, we were limited in how much we wanted to spend. So we built this longhouse back in 2011. And here you see the construction. It was July 30th, 2011. It took me about 2 months to cut all of the joints. And you cut all of the joints on the ground, and you do it in first in one dimension and then in another dimension. And you put it together, make sure everything fits. But you've never raised it. You've never constructed it. And so on my birthday in 2011, we had about 24 people come over from all over in the Midwest. This was in central Wisconsin, and we put all the pieces together. And it took us 2 days. We wanted to make sure everything was safe, and that's why we used the backhoe to help lift the beams. In the Viking Age, it was done with just manpower and ropes. But you know, if one of those things falls on somebody, that it's going to hurt. The beams, the posts were 8x8s, white pine from northern Wisconsin. And we had a little problem because a storm came in and it started to rain cats and dogs. And I sent everyone away, and I stayed out, and the backhoe, Bruce Hughes was driving the backhoe, and we put up the what you see, that structure in the upper left. We put up 2 grins, the Stavlager, and 1 outrigger, and it weathered the storm, and we finished it, and that's what it looked like Sunday evening. It was 28 feet long, 12 feet wide, and there I am standing on top of the Stavlager. To give you an example, I was very pleased with how it went together because, of course, remember, it's never gone together before. I was off 3/8 of an inch on 28 feet long length, so I was really happy. All of the pieces went together, the braces and everything, and just a marvelous feeling. You can see in the lower right corner what it looked like Monday morning. We had put up some tents for shade and stuff for people, but that's what it looked like when we had that up. Of course, you're not done. I had to install a roof, and the rafters were quite interesting because in this design we have the central aisle, but we also have some wings. So the rafters had to hit 5 points across its width, and I only had to take down 5 rafters and recut them. So I was pretty happy with that as well. And the wood was for the bed of the roof was Wisconsin pine. One of the farmers next to us had cut down a bunch of pine trees and been sitting in his barn for about 20 years. So it's all Wisconsin wood. We wanted to go and try to be authentic on the roof. As it happened, one of the local contractors did slate roofs. You can argue about the slate roofs, but it turns out the price of the slate roof was quite reasonable. And when we thought about thatch and the fire problems, or sod with the climate in Wisconsin and how you'd have to put an irrigation system in and whatnot, so we went with the slate. And of course, in some places, this may be an area of controversy. I believe that they did use stone. In fact, the oldest extant building does use a stone roof.
But the stone would have been larger pieces of slate and pegged on.
Yep, of course. But so we had to make a few. And I also installed some walls. The walls I fashioned somewhat similar to those in Jorvik, which were hollow walls with an outer wall and an inner wall. In part, I did that because I wanted to make it slightly modular so that if I wanted to remove it and play with the walls, I could take out the section. It turns out that'll become very important a little later.